Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Bower. I'm Ryan Steffen, Communication Coordinator from Bower Center for the Arts, and this podcast is all about inspiring conversations, exploring the arts in our community, and shining a spotlight on the incredible individuals and organizations that make Bedford such a vibrant place. Today, we are chatting with Executive Director Susan Martin, Board Member Des Black, and volunteer and donor John Boggess. They've all been invited here today to talk about the brand new construction project you may have seen if you've driven by the building in the last couple months. That is our new outdoor learning center and community gathering space. Welcome, all three of you.
Hi there. Great to be here.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get started. We'll start with Susan, because I think that this is her vision initially. Susan, our executive director, had a crazy dream. I want you to tell us a little bit about the dream that you had for that.
So I felt like, we had some underutilized space just outside the Bower Center. We are obviously on a very small footprint, and we don't have much more room to expand. And that's always been an issue for us as an arts center. Where can we do additional programming? Obviously, storage is a premium. And how can we make use or best use of every inch that we have? And, I think it came one day, we got a new sign installed outside the Bower Center, out on the grassy area. And just going out there during the process of installing and determining what the best use of that space is for the sign, I just kept looking at that little lawn area. It had lots of divots and holes in it. You couldn't go out and use it. It was dangerous. You could fall off the edge of it. We couldn't take kids out there. And I just kept talking to Des and saying, I really wish we could find a way to use this space. I want to find a way to bring the arts outdoors, to connect with the community, make it a space where individuals could just come and hang out, but also use it, for programming and events and things like that. So it just kind of started with that. And then with many discussions between Des and myself, as our facilities chair, what would that look like and how we could construct something to make use of that area.
So, Des, what did you think of that idea when she brought it to you?
Susan always comes to me with lots of ideas.
So
on a daily basis.
At an old building, it happens all the time.
I took it on advisement and then started to do research. That was the first part, because what's different about a deck at the Bower Center is it's a commercial space, not a domestic space. I've built domestic decks, the back of the house, that sort of thing, but never in a commercial environment. So all the rules are similar but different, and you can't make that mistake. So that was the beginning, research.
Yeah.
And then it was,
how do we fund it?
Yeah. Yeah. And how big?
Mm-hmm.
But that is an issue. And we had some scrubby trees and stuff along the emergency exit area that looked pretty rough. So we knew that we had to even do prep work before we could even put the first stump in.
Right.
So that was the beginning of the process.
Yeah. So backing up just a little bit, as facilities director, a lot of your job also entails fixing things and taking care of things that are falling apart. This is much different. It's a visionary, moving forward space.
Mm-hmm.
How did it feel to be put in a totally different seat? Like, not the toilet's leaking, but I want to create this whole new project. What was that like for you?
Oh, more exciting. A clean plate to start with instead of fighting with 1846 problems.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Sure.
No, that was nice. The good news was I've built decks before. I know how to design and draw and do all that sort of stuff. So once I got all of the code understood, what we actually did is put a call out to some volunteers, friends, other people I know that have worked in the area, as a advisory group, if you like, to actually finalize a plan. So I had a footprint, but I didn't have a final solution. So we had a meeting. There was 5 of us in the meeting. One gentleman had run a business of building decks many years ago, but he had that knowledge.
Yeah.
And others were woodworking related type people. So we understood the terminology, and from that we formalized a final design, which was different to what I originally drew, which is great because, sometimes you get too close to the problem, you can't see
Sure.
what the issues are. So my design put a shadow across the sign. You couldn't see it from the road,
Okay.
for
Yeah.
example. So that was picked up, and we modified the shape to accommodate that. So that's how we started.
Sure. So, you drew up some plans, you had some ideas, you figured out where you were going to go, but you needed to get the supplies. So how did we find the money? Where did it come from?
Right.
Well, we were very fortunate. We work with a grant writer, Charlotte Farley, who helps me to take these dreams and these visions a step further to find the funding opportunities. And we're very fortunate to have her to help with that. And so, again, I provide her with, what we're looking at creating, how much it's going to cost, and put together a budget. And then she does the research on where there might be a foundation or a corporation that might support that project. And so we were very, fortunate that we found two grant providers, the Weyerhaeuser Corporation, Weyerhaeuser, their foundation, and then Norfolk Southern, their corporate giving program, which was both are very supportive of transformative projects that are also community based, which was really right up our alley. And so we had never received funding from either of those entities prior to this project. So we were very fortunate to come across those and to get the funding support to offset the expenses of pretty much all of the materials and supplies, to be able to, as Des mentioned, rip out and clean the area really good. We had a lot of trees and shrubbery and stuff like that. So we were very fortunate to get those two grants that helped to offset those expenses. And then thanks to the volunteer help, we did not have to pay a team to actually come in and do the actual design work and the construction. So again, another, opportunity. We have been very, very fortunate to have such wonderful Bauer friends and family members that come and support us and help us to construct those things.
And if you know Des, you know that he doesn't sit on an idea for very long. When an idea comes to him, he works on it quickly. What was it about this project that was so important to you that made you move so fast on it?
The season.
Fair.
Get it done before it gets too hot.
Sure.
Also having it available so that we could start to use it through summer camps and other activities in this year. If it was left too late, then that's another year gone before we can exploit it. So, it was we started in early Feb and finished on the 6th of May, and that was the deadline because I was traveling after that, and so I wanted it finished, and we got it to the day.
Sure. So without taking us through every single little detail, walk us through briefly constructing that deck.
Okay. So the first thing we had to do is get a planning permit and a building permit before we could even start moving earth, which we did. And I found that experience. I was very nervous about that process, not having done it with Bedford, but meeting with the building inspector, Gary, and going through that process and the planning office I was streamlined. It went right through quickly. We got the planning permit and the building permit up, and that to the design that we specified. So then it was a case of pulling in the crew, and you don't want 20 people there in the same day. There's just not enough area to work or to do it. So 3 to 4 people per event. We tried to schedule it across weekends, and we'd put in at least a 4-hour day, recognizing that the age of some of the volunteers were up to 83. Right. Our youngest volunteer was 14.
Yes.
All right. So we had a range of skill sets, energy levels, and everything else. And we just did it. It was 28 calendar days of effort across 60 days calendar period, and about 290 man hours in total of volunteer time.
Right. And how many volunteers would you say you had total?
16.
16. Plus a couple extras who just walked up off the street.
Yeah, it was cool. We had this guy walk past and he stopped. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Making a deck." He said, So I'm being cheeky. I said, "You want to give us a hand?" He said, "Sure." And up he comes, and he helps dig a couple of post holes. That was cool. I had at Liberty High School students come past
driving
us.
by.
Yeah, they saw what was going on, so they said, "What are you doing?" So I told them. They said, "You want to help?" Okay. So they went and parked and come up. They could only give us half an hour because they're going to a sports training session, but they took away all the rubbish for us. Put it in dumpsters.
I remember the first guy you talked about because I had stopped by to see what was going on and take a few pictures. And one of the things I noticed, I'm like, this volunteer is not wearing the right shoes for this job.
Yeah.
I was like,
he wasn't very prepared.
No, I was like, he did not know what he was getting into today. But if he was just walking by, that's
just walking by.
That's great. I mean, I think that speaks to the Bedford community in general.
Sure.
That if they see something great happening, they're ready to jump in and help with it.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to the Bauer Center as well.
Yeah.
That people are willing to jump in and help out something that they see super worthwhile. All right, I'm going to transition because I've not been able to let him talk at all. So the third guest we have here is John Boggess. And John is here because the family has decided to name the space the Lucille Boggess Outdoor Learning Center and Community Gathering Space. So they did that through a sponsorship for the next couple of years, hopefully longer than the next couple of years. It is named after Lucille Boggess, who is your mother. Can you just tell us a little bit about her and why you felt like this was the right space to name for her?
Sure. And before I get started with that, I do want to give a shout out to Lowe's because we did get a discount on material from them.
We definitely want to do that. And they're also doing some donations. We're going to be putting up some shade sales or a shade sale to provide shade coverage, and they're donating that as well. So we're very, very grateful to them for their support.
Yeah. So going back to my mom, a lot of people know my mom from her more recent community involvement, and that's the creation of the D-Day Memorial here in town because two of her brothers were Bedford boys. But she has a long history in Bedford going back to 1948. And, for about 50 years, that was in the courthouse. And one thing that struck me about the location of the deck was it had this commanding view of the courthouse. Mm-hmm. And I thought, if she were a few years younger, she probably would want to sit out there all day long and shake her fist at what's going on at the courthouse or maybe give them kind words. So that's kind of where the impetus of this came from. And it was also just a reminder to the community that here's a person who has not only done so much through different phases of her life, but she's also helped to mentor and uplift women. And we already have the Sarah Broughton space named after a similar community force. And having another woman's name on a space at the Bauer, I seem to be very appropriate.
Yeah. So you started to answer this, but I'll reiterate. Why here? Why the Bauer Center specifically? And then why now? Why did you feel like this was the right time to do it?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to be straight to the point. She's 96. And, she's still at the point where she can come visit, as she did, and enjoy it and look at this space. And it just seemed like, again, it's a good reminder to folks who may not remember what she did 50, 60 years ago. And why not now remind people of her story? And also, as you said, to help fund and promote this amazing addition to the Bauer.
Yeah. I'll echo, I was there with Lucille when she came for her visit. Also thanks to Spring Oak for arranging that transport to get her there. Her mobility is a bit challenging right now. So that's why we lined up this special trip for her. I'll say at the beginning, she was very grumpy. She was not happy. It was a little hot. It was a little sunny. She was getting her picture taken. I'm not really sure she was super happy about getting her picture taken. When we came back in, that's where actually I felt like all of that melted a little bit. And I asked if she'd ever been in the Bauer Center. And her answer was, I'm sure I have. I don't remember, but definitely not like this. Mm-hmm. So she hadn't been there since the renovation had happened. So I asked if she minded if I took her on a little tour. And so we left everybody else behind, and I just kind of walked her around the space, told her what was happening. One of the things she said is it's so nice to see that you're using every corner, which I think has been something that the Bauer Center has done really, really well, is to try to take advantage of every corner in that building and make something great happen in it. But probably my favorite moment was we also had kids camp going on at the same time. And I took her down into the terrace gallery, the lower gallery, and there was a group of camp kids who were working on their animal faces. They were looking at mirrors. They were trying to figure out what animal face they saw in their face and then creating a mask, creating an image from it. And as soon as we walked in the door, it's like they swarmed to her. And she kind of started to glow at that point. So it was very fun to watch her interact with these very, very young kids who were giving her a mirror and asking what animal she saw in her face and what was her favorite animal. And if she could pick a part of her face that would be part of the animal, what would it be? It was just neat to see her interact with that very young crowd and to see her appreciate that building. In that space.
I think you said when you were talking to her, she said, "Yeah, you don't have the green carpet on the floor anymore."
She did.
That's crazy that she remembers that. That's crazy. Yeah, because we just took the last of that out, about 5 years ago, back during COVID. There was still a little remnant left on the stage area, which drove me insane.
I'm sure
we
she
finally got that off of there.
She probably had been in there many, many times when it was a place of worship.
Absolutely.
Hadn't seen it in more recent years.
But if you still want to catch the green carpet, it's upstairs in the balcony. That does still exist. If you want to see it, it does still exist up in that corner.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of ask all three of you, and you can answer however you want. What do you envision this new space being used for in the near future and in the far future?
Well, for me personally, the idea behind it was, again, not only to be able to use it for our activities and programming that were already existing, but also the opportunity to expand it and possibly offer new opportunities. But I really, really just wanted it to be obviously a place for creativity, a place for connections. We wanted it, again, just like you were talking about, we have a lot of individuals that still don't know what the Bower Center is. They don't realize that it is open to the community, during our hours of operation. Come in and experience all 3 floors because there's wonderful things going on. Our gallery admission is always free. And I wanted to expand to the outdoors that hopefully passerbys, anybody that's just walking throughout the community, if you just need a space that you want to sit down, you want to meet with somebody, you want to have your lunch, you want to just reflect, we hope that that's what that space is going to be. We want it to be a place for building connections and building more community outside of the Bower Center. Outside, we're right on a prime corner location. We've got a lot of great stuff going on at the middle school project with the new apartments and the boutique hotel that's coming. And we feel like that, we're just a block away from that. And those folks hopefully will be coming down the street to go to the local restaurants, to do some shopping. And they'll feel like that they have an opportunity to just stop by the deck, bring their own beverages and or things that they want to stop by and use the space. But then we're also just very excited about the programming that we do offer. You were mentioning Lucille and having the access. It is an ADA compliant space. It does have wheelchair accessibility through our building. And that was something that was also of importance to us because we do have a program called HeartWorks where we work with groups of individuals with disabilities and we do all of our programming inside. And we look forward to expanding that programming and being to take them out onto the deck and allow them to do creativity outdoors as well. So, for me, from a perspective, it's all about building connections and community.
How about you, Des?
Can you imagine sitting out on the deck during one of the parades? It's a prime spot.
Yeah.
I could see that. And I can also visualize the kids out there doing their art on tables and chairs out there and just making the noise they make and having fun and letting people drive past. When those lights turn red, people look at the deck.
You're right.
We kept on getting comments as we were building. Oh, looks great. It's going well. This sort of thing. And when the kids are in there, they go, oh, that's what they do at the Bower Center. So,
yeah. And just to add on to kind of what Susan said, there's a real shortage of outdoor space in Centertown. We've got the old bank space at Main and Bridge, but that's a little toasty in the summer, even with the umbrellas. And this is a very nice space to come and bring your lunch and sit down. Or if you're a community group who want to do, let's say you want to sit outside and knit for your monthly or weekly get together. It's a great place to do that.
Yeah, I envision, we have small groups and organizations in our community that actually utilize space inside the Bauer Center for their monthly meetings and get-togethers, and we look forward to offering the option that they could meet outside if weather's permitting. So I think that will also be a great. It's also a wonderful addition. We're right next door to the Wharton Gardens, so it's another, I feel like, extension upon that as well. There's some seating areas and picnic areas in the garden, but then it also extends into the Bauer Center. We hope that you can enjoy what we have to offer inside, and then also maybe land outside, for bringing your lunch from Town Kitchen Provisions next door or one of the other restaurants in the community. We just feel like it's going to be a great gathering space.
Yeah. Exactly.
So besides the deck, so something I love about the building is it's just got so many unique spaces. So a question I want to ask everybody is, what is your other favorite space in the building that maybe people know about or maybe they don't?
Well, for me, it's the craft area in the basement. There's so much diversity down there, and the way it's laid out now, and the clay room, they attract me all the time.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know we have 3 different classrooms downstairs. One entire clay studio has 4 pottery wheels. For those of you that don't know, that was my very first experience at the Bauer Center. I had moved to town. I was looking for something to do with a friend, and looking to find an arts community, and we signed up for a pottery class, and I'm still terrible at it. However, what it made me realize is I met people in that building that had an energy that I felt like I was missing from when I came here. So that led me into my path of being connected to the Bauer Center kind of from that point forward. We also have a great, huge classroom space with lots of mosaic materials. We have 2 great mosaic instructors, Peggy and Dottie, who do some amazing work themselves, have a great following, but also have amassed a huge collection of items that you can use for projects. It's one of my favorite spots to look at when I walk in that room, because it's just like a jar full of rainbows. There's all these tiles separated by color, that I know was a massive effort by some of the board members and volunteers a couple of years ago. And though difficult to maintain, it's still really beautiful to look at.
Yeah. So I have to say that my favorite, I have a couple, but my favorite area or space is the 3rd floor, which is the home to most of our studio artists, their studio spaces. I like to go up there a lot of times early in the morning before we open to the public. I just take my time and walk through their studios, which any of our guests are able to do. I love to go in and look at what they're working on, what might currently be on their easel, what's something new, just enjoying their art. And it's just nice. It's quiet and it's peaceful up there. So a lot of times it just gives me opportunities to clear my head and think. And I also enjoy going up there during the daytime hours when there's some artists up there working. I'll spend some time just chatting with them, seeing how it's going. And then my other favorite space is actually the balcony. Again, it's a really neat space to just go and sit if you want some quiet time. Sometimes I'll take a pad and paper up there to spend some time, just work. We just came from a visioning workshop this morning. And so doing some visioning, thinking about what the day looks like or the week looks like. Also, I have sometimes been sitting up there during our open hours, and I'll be able to kind of see some of the guests that come in to see the exhibit that's going on in the gallery below. And it's kind of nice just to see them walking through and not really eavesdrop, but hear them talking about the art and, what they're experiencing when they're in the gallery. So that 3rd floor is really my favorite space.
And for me, it's actually the terrace galleries. If you haven't been, that's the lower level. Almost all of our spaces face north. So you get this lovely north light coming in. That room is no exception. So if you want a space to, excuse me, enjoy art, this is a little more contemplative and it's quiet, a little more quiet than the Broughton Gallery. And I'm probably influenced by the fact that it's an old church fellowship hall. And I spent a lot of summers at Vacation Bible School at the Baptist Church Fellowship Hall. So it's maybe bringing me back to sugar cookies and Coca-Cola. So there's something, even though it's a secular space now, there's still a little bit of a spiritual side to the Bauer in a nurturing way.
Yeah, very much so. It's funny that you mentioned that because my first experience with the building itself was actually back when it was still the Christian church, and my kids all went to preschool there. And so all of those spaces and all of those rooms, especially on the first floor, were used for classroom spaces, lunch space, nap time, all that kind of stuff. And so I can still envision, when that was taking place. And it's just amazing, though, now to come full circle and be a staff member of Bower Center for the Arts and see how much that space has transitioned over the years. And it's been usable in so many different ways. So, yeah.
My space is very specific. Probably my favorite space to be in the Bower Center is standing right in front of the gift shop, looking into the Broughton Gallery. There's something about looking through those doors, which are still very old and original and beautiful looking, and seeing a space that clearly has remnants of the old as well as the new. It is loud, it's echoey, it's beautiful, but standing outside, it kind of is not so echoey. As a former theater director, I always love to see the idea of potential. So people would always say, like, don't you hate when they take the set down? And I'm like, no, it's my second favorite day of a show. My favorite day is the day that we finish it. And my second favorite day is the day that it's all gone. And so this week, we've been working at the Bower Center, and we're in a flip of our exhibits. So standing there, I should say last week, not this week, standing there and looking into that room that's just empty, I kind of love, because it makes you think of all the potential of what could happen in that room, whether it be art, whether it be music, theater. We have a couple people that come in and just sing and play the piano, practicing for a show that's coming up. I love to see what people bring into that space and just create out of it, especially when it's empty. It just, to me, it creates the potential, and it's the vastness that has potential. Speaking of different spaces, and what we love to see in potential, what's your favorite thing to see or do at the Bower Center? Any ideas? Or is there a favorite concert, a favorite performance, something, an exhibit, something that sticks out to you that will be forever memorable to you at the Bower Center?
Wow, that's a hard one because there's so many.
There is so many.
So the current exhibit that just opens today, the National Juried Fiber Arts exhibit, which we only host every other year, is my absolutely favorite exhibit. And I think it comes from the fact that my grandmother was a fiber artist and a quilter. And I have great memories of spending summers with her. And while I still cannot do what she did, she would, teach me to knit and crochet and, to make quilt squares and things like that. And I'm just, I just love that memory. So this exhibit, even though I like to say, and this is mine saying alone, it's not your grandmother's quilt show. Fiber arts has come a long way over the years, and the work that we have is just amazing. And the work that these artists do with fiber is amazing. But that's probably one of my favorite things. And then while it can get loud and chaotic, the summer for me is again another favorite of mine, because having the kids in there and hearing them, they're so excited. They're having a wonderful time, but they're learning and experiencing, and they're just, they're being creative. And one of my favorite things is in talking with the kids, they want one. And this still sticks in my head, and this has been a few years ago, where the kids were in the clay studio and they were creating pottery, and one of the kids said, "You mean I can create whatever I want?" And the instructor and I were standing there, and we were like, "Yeah, that's the whole point of this." And because they are so used to, unfortunately, when they're in school, they're being taught how to create possibly one certain way, and they don't necessarily get the opportunity to be as creative and go on off. And they were like, "This is awesome, because I can create and make whatever I want. It's whatever, my mind can see and what I can design." And so they're just so excited that they come in, and, they're not so structured that they have to do it a certain way, that they can do whatever they want. And so, those are some of my memories.
I have two images in my head when you asked that question. One of them was the pottery studio. It was last year, and Thomas Killian one of the teachers there, was ready to start a new class. And these kids were 12, 14-year-olds, okay? Being the facilities guy, I'm always walking around somewhere. I walked past the door and I stopped and looked in, and the look on the mostly girls, their faces was of absolute anticipation and excitement. I mean, they were glowing, just that look on their face. They hadn't started, they were getting ready to go, right? That was just a picture in my head. And the other one was, not sure, it was 2 years ago or 4 years ago, fiber art, when we had the rainfall of the red material falling all the way down. That was such a statement, and it was just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 15 and 20 foot long strands of wool and other fabrics, and it looks just like a red waterfall coming down. Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm not sure I have anything in particular. One thing that I always love is a reminder of how rich local talent is. Because when I go to the shows and I see, how many of the entrants are relatively local and how amazingly talented they are, it definitely warms your heart. And for me personally, having been involved in the performing arts from a management standpoint for so long, I purposely started throwing myself into the visual arts about 15 years ago because that was a side I didn't know as well. And so it's so great to have this resource here in Bedford for people who know absolutely nothing. Just come and look, just react. You don't need to have an art history background. You don't need to understand the theory behind the color use or anything. Just react as a human to what's on the walls.
Yeah. I would add to it, but I feel like we are way over time. We could talk about
this all day.
We could. I think what I can summarize most, and to bring it back to part of the purpose that we have this podcast, which is talking about the dedication for the deck space that's coming up, I feel like everything we've talked about still actually captures the spirit of Lucille Boggess. She loves beauty. She loves strong energy. She loves positivity. And I feel like that's what we've talked about. And that's what we've seen in this space, which is why it feels like it's such a good fit to name this space after her. So I'm going to wrap some things up because I'm looking at my clock right now. We do want to thank you so much for joining and listening to us talk about this exciting new space. Don't forget that the official dedication and ribbon cutting ceremony for the Lucille Boggess Outdoor Learning Center and Community Space will be this Saturday, June 28th at 11 a.m. It is open to the public, and we hope that you will both support the Bauer Center for the Arts and honor Lucille in this dedication. We'll have some light refreshments, some short remarks, and at that time, we will invite everyone to explore all 3 floors of the building and check out that 4th Biennial Fiber Arts exhibit that opened just today. Also, don't forget there's always something happening at the Bauer Center for people of all ages. We still have a few openings for the last 2 youth camps we are holding this summer. Virginia Hollow, a fantastic band, will be joining us in the evening of June 28th at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
On August 7th, we're going to be hosting our next Bauer After Hours, and this time we're going to be salsa dancing. And then the next Cab Kids event, that's our Creative Arts for Bauer Kids. Family Art Day is going to be just around the corner from that on Saturday, August 9th. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what the Bauer Center for the Arts can offer. For more details on our classes, events, exhibitions, and etc., please visit bowercenter.org and follow us on our social media. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time on Behind the Bauer.